Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Hearth podcast. My name's Diane, and the last few episodes we've been journeying into starting knitting, why to knit, what you need, tools of the trade, different kinds of yarn you can use. Today we're taking a little bit of a break. We're gonna switch over and head into the garden. We're going to talk about why gardening, what do you get out of it, what are the benefits, what do you eat, and how your gardening zone affects your choices when it comes to gardening. So if you guys are ready and you're excited, grab a cup of your favorite drink and join me at the hearth. So why gardening? I grew up gardening with my family. My grandfather and was, I wouldn't say a homesteader, really. I mean, I guess you could call them that. That was just how people lived. It wasn't really the term for them, but they had a garden, you had a wood stove, they stacked wood, they kept everything. As a kid, because we lived so close to them, we lived right next door basically. We would help with stacking wood. We'd help in the garden. We would, um, help clear out brush in the spring or the fall, go on trips to the dump. In their house in the basement, he had a workbench and he had those metal coffee tins, and he had nails and screws and washers. I mean, he kept everything. It was the best because you could go down if you needed something, you could go down there and you could find it. And they had a big chest freezer down there. I don't know if they actually used the chest freezer by the time I was, 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. I don't know that they actually used it, but they had it down there. And so, for them, it was just their way of life. So anyway, I grew up helping in the garden and we would plant, we'd weed, which I hated as a kid. Um, and my favorite part was because he had a tractor, and so he would till the garden, and there's nothing like sticking your toes in dirt that has been freshly tilled. It's warm, the soil is loose. It's one of the best feelings. Anyway, so I grew up gardening. My mom had flower gardens all over the place. She's great at plants. So it's something that I grew up with, and for a long time I didn't really care so much about it, I'll be honest. I've sort of come back to gardening and um and have slowly made my way into preserving and canning herbal remedies, and I've come into my own as far as exploring homesteading, gardening, and the things that I want to garden. That's my history with it. But why would you garden? What are the benefits of gardening? There's a lot of health benefits, environmental benefits, economic benefits to it. So let's just start with the health benefits. So obviously, you're going to be out in the sun, you're going to get vitamin D, you're getting the fresh produce from the garden if you're gardening with vegetables. Even if you're not gardening vegetables, you're still outside and you're doing flowers or herbs. You're out in the sun, you're out in the fresh air. It's great for your mental health. Gardening can be very physical, and so, it's good for your physical health. As far as the environment goes, you're helping reduce your carbon footprint. If you're planting flowers, if you're companion planting, you're helping support pollinators in your area. I know a lot of people don't like dandelions. It's kind of the weed that no one wants, but really, they're one of the first things that bees get in the spring. So you don't want to get rid of them. You don't want to cover them in pesticides to get rid of them. Like, that hurts my heart. But anyway, you're trying to support your local pollinators. You're conserving water by, if you're covering the soil, if you use mulch or wood chips, or even if you use cover crops, by covering the ground, you're helping conserve water. Even how you water, whether you're using like soaker hoses or If you're hand watering, you're conserving water by how you garden. And then the economic benefits are also there, especially like I said, if you're growing your own food, you're going to help reduce your grocery bill. You're going to save money when it comes to like ornamental plants potentially if you're using flowers, or if you're using some vegetables or herbs as your ornamentals instead. You're not necessarily going out to buy hedges or rose bushes or whatever the extra things could be. So you could potentially save money there as well. And then depending on how much you're growing, what it is you're growing, there is a potential for income if you wanted to sell food at the farmer's market, or you had a produce stand, or you wanted to sell to your neighbor if you had extra zucchini or green beans or tomatoes. If you decide you're going to grow, let's just say you're going to grow lemon balm, and you decide to make like a salve out of it or tea or something, you can create products to sell based on what it is you're growing. So there is that benefit. Gardening also gives you a connection to nature because you're out and about and you're looking at your gardens and you're in your gardens and you're looking to see, okay, what's going on, what's good, what's bad, how are my plants doing? You're engaging with the seasons, you're engaging with nature, and you're watching the different cycles. You're seeing the rain cycles. Have we had more sun this year? You're watching how the sun moves throughout your garden, and are these plants getting enough sun? Are they getting too much sun? So you're paying attention to everything that's happening in your garden. It helps promote sustainability for you, for your family, and it also helps encourage mindfulness. You're not focusing on all the things that could be happening that you should be doing when you're in the garden, and you're looking at, okay, say you plant everything out in the spring, and you go in a couple weeks later, you're looking to see, okay, have these come up, have the seeds sprouted, has the soil warmed up, is it too damp, is it too dry? Your focus is on the now, and it's not on the million things on your phone apps or the notifications that are coming in. It's on what you're doing, and it slows you down a little bit. Um, Gardening also gives you a chance to develop skills, whether it's learning new skills or enhancing skills that you already have. Gardening breeds creativity, whether that comes from designing the garden that you want and planting it like that, or especially with flowers, if you're gardening with flowers and herbs, planting them in a way that you have the tall stuff in the back, and the shorter flowers in the front, planting so that you have flowers in all seasons. There's so many ways that gardening gives you a chance to showcase creativity, and it's just such an amazing hobby. It also cultivates patience and problem solving. There is nothing like patience and gardening, and honestly problem solving, because the fact is that you're going to have problems. You're going to have issues, and it's going to happen. Whether it's weather related, or maybe something happened because you had never tried something before and it didn't go right. One year I planted too early. Our growing season is like roughly 120 days. Generally, our last frost is around Memorial Day. I was super eager. I planted in the ground right at Memorial Day. And let me tell you, 2 weeks later, all of that had rotted and I had to replant. So you need patience, and things are going to go wrong. It's just inevitable, because there's only so many things that you have control over when it comes to gardening. You have to learn to just roll with it, which some people may not like, and that's okay. Then really, I mean, you should be gardening with a sense of joy. You know what I mean? Like, it should make you happy. It should be something that you're excited to do. There's a sense of accomplishment once things start popping up and you start getting either flowers or veggies or fruit, whatever it is you're planting. When things are growing right and you see the end result of that, it's really It's really satisfying. There's a reward that at the end, and it's not instant. I know sometimes it's hard to not have that instant gratification, but gardening really is not instant gratification. There's a little bit of instant gratification if you till, and once those you till, the soil looks amazing. We'll save the till conversation for another day. But in general, when you're planting, whether it's seeds or starts, whatever it is, it's not so much the instant gratification because it's not. Your plants are going to take their time. They're going to grow at their speed. Some plants, like squash, for instance, or watermelon, cantaloupe, things that have a long growing season, you're not going to see that until the end of summer. You're not going to have that fruit until the end of summer. So it's not about instant gratification. It's really, yes, these things are growing well, you're nurturing them, you're seeing them through, and then the excitement that you get once those flowers bloom and they have their buds and you know that everything's fertilizing and tendrils are sneaking out. It's very satisfying. It's hard because, you plant your seeds and then I saw something, I don't know if it was on Facebook, but it was like, plant your seeds and then the next day you're out there with a magnifying glass looking to see if they've popped up. It's just, there's a sense of wonder with gardening. Um, and that's one of the things I really love about it. Community engagement is another benefit. There's obviously farmers markets everywhere. And even if you're not going to farmers markets, if you use space in a community garden or people who farm, if you're buying from a local farm stand, you're engaging in that community and you're supporting your community. It's really just a great way to keep that local food chain, that local food source going because they depend on you just as much as you depend on them. The other positive about gardening, not the only one, but sometimes it can be a connection to older generations. There's a lot of people in the homesteading movement now, so it's not that it's dying out, but there's a lot of people that are getting older that have a lot of knowledge. And if you're not gardening, you may not meet them. So it's just a way also to connect with your community. A couple other things, it can improve your living space. Gardens, whether it's flowers or vegetables, it's very green, it's very colorful. If you have a balcony in an apartment like we do, it's a great way to spruce it up. Obviously, if you're living in an HOA, even at certain apartments, we are not allowed to grow vegetables on our balconies. But, it's a way to spruce up your living space. And personal growth is something else. We kind of talked about it a little bit with a sense of accomplishment, and patience. But it helps you build resilience and responsibility and gives you a sense of purpose. You're taking care of these plants, you're nurturing them, you're bringing these things through to the end of their lifespan. I know that kind of sounds probably morbid, but really, you are taking these plants, whether they're from seedlings or seeds, and you are nurturing them through until you get to the end product, which is the fruit or the flower, whatever it is that you're getting at the end of this gardening season. You have to be resilient, you have to be patient, you have to be responsible for them because you can hit midsummer, you can hit August. Say you planted tomatoes and green beans and squash and everything is like taking over, the plants are going wild. There's tomatoes everywhere, there's green beans, and you're trying to harvest all of this stuff at once. It can be very overwhelming, very overwhelming. And you just want to be maybe like, screw it, I'm done. You know what I mean? And let it all go. Don't worry about weeding, don't worry about harvesting or preserving any of it. You're trying to let it go wild. I've been there. And it can be very overwhelming. But at the same time, you're gonna want that food preserved if you're preserving. You're gonna want those green beans to eat fresh, or you're gonna want those tomatoes in a salsa, or whatever it is, you planted them for a reason. So it's important to remember once you get into the crazy, crazy garden harvesting season that inevitably shows up once you've planted all this stuff, you need to remember why you started your garden. You need to remember your goals, and you just need to push through because especially if you're only doing one garden, if you're not doing a fall garden, once you get through the harvesting part, it does slow down. in the winter. And so, that August, September, even into October, that's the really busy season. And like I said, it's important to remember why you're gardening, and really push through with what your goals were for your garden. And that last thing is, it can be family fun. I say this knowing that my daughter does not enjoy gardening. She would help in my big dreams of gardening. She would help, but a lot of times it can be fun, especially with little kids. They really want to help plant the seeds. They want to, dig in the soil, and they want to do all these things. It can be great fun to take your kids out into the garden and show them, explain how it works, and how let them help dig. I know if you're trying to have a perfect garden, you may be cringing at that, because little kids, nothing's going to be perfect with little kids. But you're teaching them, and you're learning together. If you are really like, I don't want them in my garden, you can give them a small little section. Maybe give them a little section that's their garden. They can plant their seeds, they can do what they want with it, and don't worry about it. They're just there to have fun. They're just there to learn. It's not the end of the world if your rows aren't evenly spaced or the seeds aren't far enough apart. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it is a great way to bring your kids into the garden and learn together. So on that note, we're going to switch things up a little bit. And my question to you is, what makes you happy? A lot of times when we talk about gardening, we're talking about vegetable gardening when it comes to the homestead community. And that's true. A lot of people love to plant vegetables. They love to garden vegetables, but some people don't. Some people don't enjoy it. Do you like herbs? Do you like flowers? Do you like vegetables? What makes you happy about those? Is it something else? Less work over time? Do you want to plant annual plants or perennials, or a combination? Um, whether it's in the ground, or do you want raised beds? There's so many ways to garden. So many ways to garden. And the idea in general would be that you want to do less work over time, right? Because gardening is a lot of work. There's a lot of, especially if you're doing all annual plants, like most vegetables are annuals. I think asparagus is one of the few that's a perennial. I don't know. I'll have to look. That'll be another topic for another day. But generally, vegetables are annuals. Same with, there's a lot of flowers that are annuals. And so if you're looking for things that you can plant and once, or once every so often, and harvest for the next couple years, then you'd want to look at perennials. So there's a lot of flowers that you can get, a lot of herbs that you can plant. And then just remember, this should bring you joy. This should be exciting. This should be happy. This should make you excited to go and sit in your garden. And look at your plants, and even weeding. I found as I've gotten older that going out in the garden, not during the height of the summer, in the day, noon, when it's super hot and the sun's at the highest point, yeah, not a great time to go weeding. But if you weed first thing in the morning, or you're going out, towards the late afternoon, early evening, before the bugs get bad, it's kind of meditative, actually. If you told me that at 12 years old, I would laugh at you, but it is a little bit meditative, and it's a way just to be in your garden, to see what's going on, to look at your plants, and keep an eye on everything, really, which should make you happy to be in your garden, to see those plants growing, and to nurture those plants. It should make you happy. What do you like to eat? That is the other big question, because you want to grow food that you actually eat. You don't want to plant things that you don't like, because then you're doing a lot of work for nothing. Unless you plan to sell those things, I would not plant things that you're not eating. Seriously, if you're trying something new, like one year I tried banana peppers. I grew banana peppers. I had never had one. I said, but I don't like hot peppers, so I did a banana pepper and a Jimmy Nardello pepper, which is a very skinny sweet pepper. Because, like I said, we have a shorter growing season. Bell peppers are very hard to grow and actually turn colors before we get cold. So the skinny peppers was a great alternative because they don't take as long to grow. They were really delicious, and the banana peppers were great. I actually just ate them fresh. I didn't pickle them or anything, but if you are growing things like broccoli or cabbage or Brussels sprouts and you don't like any of them, don't do it. Please don't do it. You are setting yourself up for lots of work for something that you don't want. And it's going to sit in your fridge, it's going to sit in your garden, and you're going to be like agonizing over this stuff that you don't like. And if your family doesn't eat them, there's no point to preserve it. It's going to sit on your shelf. So, really, grow the food that you actually eat that works well in your area or growing zone. And that's the other key to this. I mean, you can certainly try to grow things that push your growing season a little bit, because I've continually tried watermelon. It doesn't grow well for me. I have not figured out how to do it. I did change to like a mini watermelon, and we got one. We got one watermelon. It was really delicious, but I just don't have a long enough growing season for that. And so things, again, even peppers, I had to put it facing the west side so it could get that heat in the afternoon. But otherwise, like I've had a hard time growing peppers because they just don't get enough sun. They don't get enough heat. If you can manipulate your growing season and you can manipulate where you put things to grow in the best spots for them, absolutely do it. I'm not going to try to grow citrus because I'm not putting those trees in the house after October hits. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. So you have to really take that into account. Again, it's just a waste of time and money on stuff if you're not going to eat it, or your family's not going to eat it, or you don't want to preserve it. It's just not worth it. And then I would say if there's things that you can't grow that don't grow well for you, or you struggle to grow to actually get to the end of the season, supplement from farmers markets or local farm stands. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. And I would argue it's actually great because it helps support your community. I don't have a milk cow, but I love raw milk. So I'll go to a local farm and buy raw milk when I want to have it. Same thing with eggs, same thing with duck eggs. I love duck eggs, but I don't have ducks. You can certainly supplement what you're growing, and I highly recommend it, from your local farms. And farmers markets are easy because everyone is there. But say you live down the street or down the road from a local farm and they have a farm stand, stop by. Pick cucumbers or zucchini or whatever it is and give them the money. Watermelon, cantaloupe, corn is another one. I've tried growing corn, but it doesn't do well. It takes a lot of amendments and stuff, and it takes a lot of time. So things like that, cantaloupe, corn, potatoes, I'm not trying to grow. I just don't have that space or the desire to grow them most of the time. So I'm just going to buy that from either a local farm or the store or wherever you're getting it. Don't force yourself to grow all of this stuff, because it's going to make you miserable. So the last part of the discussion we have is garden zones. And there's a total of 11 hardiness zones from the USDA. Zone 1 is the coldest and it goes up to zone 11. These are not absolutes, okay? Because everywhere you go is going to have little microclimates. There's going to be differences around your state or even around your property sometimes, and where you can grow things the best. We're going to talk about record keeping in another episode, but it's really important to take notes, to keep track of that stuff on your own, because your property is really it's its own climate. And so it's important for you to know, okay, how much rain did this spot get? How much rain did this spot get? Where does the sun go? That's all gonna be specific to your space. So it's important, even though we have the hardiness zones and their guidelines for how long your growing season will be based on your location. For example, I'm in zone 5B. We can get down to, negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter. Not often, but we do. And then our average growing season can be anywhere from 119 days to 126, depending on where you are, again, in the area. The other key to this is knowing your first and last frost dates. This is really important because it tells you when you can first plant in the spring and when you want to try to cover your crops if needed in the fall. Or say if you were planting garlic in the fall, you would want to know when your ground starts to freeze, because you can't plant. I'll say it's much harder to plant once the ground freezes. Say you're overwintering garlic, you want to get that in before the ground freezes, so you have time to mulch and it can start to set, and then over winter it'll start growing back again in the spring. But those first and last frost dates are so important. And again, this is why keeping Keeping track of when that happens each year is very important because it's your environment, it's your property, it's your growing space. Knowing those things gives you guidelines for the following year of what worked, what didn't. Like I said, I know Memorial Day is generally our last frost date, but we can't plant for maybe another week or so because the ground doesn't warm up enough. So, like that year I planted right at Memorial Day, I had to replant because it was too cold in October. Usually I think our first frost day is somewhere around like the 10th or 11th of October. So, I would want to make sure if I'm planting garlic, I get that in no later than like Halloween because that by then, shortly after that or by then, depending on the year, the ground could have frozen. It really just depends on the weather that year. But you want to keep track of those dates. You want to keep track of your weather. And it's important for succession planting, which we'll talk about in the next episode. If you're going to be doing a fall garden or a early spring garden, knowing those dates and knowing when to count back and when to start seeds and all of that, it's very important. So, garden zones, like I said, they are not absolutes, but they're important to know and they're important as a guideline. You can literally just search garden zone, USDA. You can put in your zip code and it'll pop up. It's very easy to find, but again, it's a guideline. So, it's important for you to know when your first and last frost dates are because they can change. Even just going a couple cities over or a couple towns over, they could have a different one. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear what you garden, if there's things that you really don't like to garden, whether you garden vegetables or flowers or medicinal herbs, whatever it is, I'd love to hear it. If there's things I missed, definitely let me know. Or if there's topics that you'd love to go deeper into once we get a little bit further into gardening, let me know that too. Next week's episode is going to be about planning, about garden planning specifically. We're going to talk about seed catalogs, knowing your space, and planning considerations. So I hope you guys come back for the next episode. And until then, happy knitting.